And if you haven't realized it, I'm Christine. So Mary and Doug, we're going to start with you. Take it away.
I'm Mary O'Connor, the mayor of Monona. Good morning. I'm just going to do a quick update. I was at the polls till 11 last night, so it was kind of a short night. But the good news is that Monona's operating referendum passed by 32 votes, which we're all very relieved. And Monona had an amazing turnout of 96.2%. Beating our previous of 91.7. So, I mean, there's something like 250 people who did not vote who were registered here. So the fact that this referendum passed will allow us to address the growing operating expenses, including inflationary increases and pressures on the price of equipment and the growing cost of supplies and materials. But most important, it allows us to increase wages to enable us to retain valuable, experienced city staff. That's gotten to be a real issue for us. Our compensation was just much lower in comparison to other area municipalities, and we've lost a lot of talented people over the past few years. So we really feel the additional funding means that we're going to be able to retain all the services that Monona currently provides people, which is what they tell us the main reason, one of the big reasons they come here. So just a couple other things. San Damiano, the city administrator, and I are currently working on an updated memorandum of understanding with the Friends to define a public-private partnership for the management and improvement of the property and to clarify each of our commitments, and we anticipate that will come to the council early in the new year. Second, I just happen to remember this one. We are in the process, actually the council voted to approve on Monday night conveyance of the Dane County Veterans Memorial at Ahuska Park, which has been in the hands of two different groups, a veterans group and the Monona Grove Business Men's Association, and with the understanding that it was always at some point going to be turned over to the city, and that has officially happened now. The council approved the resolution, so going forward, that will be a city memorial. We are still focusing on a public safety building project. It's been on hold till after the election. We expect to move forward with negotiating a contract with for construction management services with C.D. Smith. And that should happen pretty soon, too. And their main role at this point will just be giving us a much better determination of what cost estimates will be. We don't have any idea at this point if the project will actually be moving forward. At some point, it has to happen because our facilities are in terrible condition, but I'm not quite sure when that will happen. But we do need to have a better idea of what the costs are. We just got some really rough estimates now. And on a brighter note, the Parks Department hopes to open the river rink for ice skating on Saturday, November 16th, so down at Grand Crossing. And that's everything I had right now. I don't know if anybody has any questions. But from the city end of things, Doug Plowman, our planner, is going to be discussing economic development news. So if you don't have any questions for me, I'll turn it over to Doug.
Good morning, everybody. Doug Plowman. I'm the Director of Planning and Economic Development here with the city. Lots of exciting things that I'll just kind of run through, and certainly happy to answer any questions you may have. So from the development perspective, the last couple of months have been busy. You may have heard about Topgolf receiving Plan Commission approvals. They received their zoning permit, and this would be down at sort of the WPS campus, kind of, and just west of there as well. Topgolf would be locating a 72-bay facility there across 2 levels and about 11 or 12 acres. There's also about 6.5 acres just to the north of that between West Broadway and the site as well that will be for future development. There is a TIF component to that request, and that is working through the city's Community Development Authority at the moment, with the expectation that will come to City Council probably before the end of the year for consideration. They're looking for construction to start in early 2025 with the hopes of opening right around sort of the second quarter of 2026. Monona Pines is a multifamily project, 48 units, that just received their approvals from the Plan Commission. This is 5105 Monona Drive, currently vacant parcel, just across from the golf course there. That is Walter Wayne Development Corporation are looking to put in 48 units, lots of studio units, 1-bedroom apartments, This would also include a ground floor component that would most likely be a gym operator that would also be open to the public. So really getting a mixed-use project there, and again, redeveloping that site which is currently underutilized, and that is just to the north of the Food Fight building, if that helps sort of locate that as well. And coming up on Monday, at Plan Commission, we have 4111 and 4113 Monona Drive. Again, this is a currently vacant lot just to the north of San Damiano on the lake. There is a development proposal there for 15 units of multifamily housing. It would be a completely multifamily project with no retail or sort of commercial component. That has had a pre-hearing earlier this year, and they're looking for approvals, and so that'll be coming through on Monday for discussion and consideration at the Plan Commission. And just sort of the next project that I wanted to make you aware of as well is we do have preliminary plans from River Place, from the development group down there, looking for a potential multifamily project there as well. There's been some turnover with some of the tenants there that have relocated, some consolidation into other buildings, and so they're looking to, after quite a lot of discussion, they're looking to come forward with some multifamily plans. And we're expecting that at the second meeting here in November with Plan Commission, just before Thanksgiving. That'll be coming through. As far as construction, you may have seen kind of a lot of construction fencing, a lot of things underway. The Bloom, as was mentioned, that's the corner of Monona and Dean, as well as all the way up to Springhaven. That's a 98-unit mixed-use project that's underway and really moving well at this point. It's going to be anchored by BMO Harris Bank at the ground floor at the corner of Monona Drive and Dean, and looking forward to that moving forward and sort of progressing well. And you'll certainly have seen the sort of the fencing and the work that's taking place, the activity over there. We also have BESA, which is 6501 Bridge. That is just south of the riverfront. The project's back underway. There were some changes there with the general contractor. This is kind of by the entrance of One City Schools. This project is really interesting in the fact that it has 16 live-work units, which are going to be condo units, sort of on the lower two level, or on the ground floor and the second floor, and then 29 traditional apartments above that as well. And so with work back underway now, we're expecting completion by early summer of 2025. And finally, North Point is a project that's over on East Broadway. This is a workforce housing project across 3 buildings, 2 townhomes, as well as 1 apartment building. This is just behind what used to be the former Shell gas station, now BP. And again, we've been really happy with how that's progressing. That's expecting to complete by the end of the year. One of the townhome buildings is already occupied, and the other townhome building and the apartment building nearing completion, and we're expecting the residents to be able to move in before the end of 2024. Just a couple other updates, things coming out of my department as well. The city did create an additional 7 new tax incremental districts across the city, as far reaching from sort of East Side Club at the northern end of the city, all the way sort of onto West Broadway and sort of throughout the city. The creation of these new districts will allow for additional development opportunity, as well as reinvestment within the city within a half mile of that district as well. So just the other day, they were submitted to the DOR, and we're looking forward to those being implemented. And finally, I'm working on a vape moratorium. City Council had enacted this about 6 months ago. We're looking into opportunities for regulation of electronic smoking retailers, and I'll be bringing recommendations forward to Plan Commission on Monday. This will also be going through Public Safety Committee and then on to City Council as well. So certainly welcome any input, any feedback on those regulations and on that discussion. Materials will be up on the city website by the end of the week, and again, there'll be opportunities here for public comments, and certainly would welcome the business community giving some feedback on that as well. That's it from me, but happy to answer any questions.
As you can tell, lots going on in our planning department. And we have 1.5 people there, so it's lots of hours, huh, Doug?
Well, thank you both.
Okay.
And now, Kristen, come on up. I think we're going to have this ready to go.
We have some materials to share with you to take for reference and maybe share with others.
Okay, there you go.
All right, thank you so much.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having us on your agenda. So as we mentioned, that I'm here on behalf of the Sustainability Committee for the city. We do a number of initiatives, and right now, our Don't Be Salty initiative is our winter focus. And so that's what I'm here to talk with you about today. So responsible winter salting, it's important, and the issue for its importance is that we have seen increasing sodium chloride concentrations in our lakes and streams for many decades. Wisconsin began using, road salt as a standard de-icer in the 1950s, and it has only increased salinization of our water bodies. And once salt enters the environment, it's a permanent pollutant. It doesn't go away. As we have learned, and we're seeing in more recent research, freshwater bodies that are becoming increasingly saltier are terrible. They're very bad for the plants and animals that have evolved in those freshwater environments. And the largest contributors, the largest sources of this salt pollution are road salt applied on our roads. It only takes 1 teaspoon of salt, if you can believe it, to permanently contaminate 5 gallons of water, as you can see here in the slide. And annually, Dane County uses about 30,000 tons of salt on our roads. That's very significant. As you see, it's enough to pollute 23 billion gallons of water, which it's hard to fathom. But again, if you go down to the 5-gallon pail, 1 teaspoon, you can start putting that together. And this doesn't include what we put on our sidewalks, what we use on our private and our public properties, driveways, et cetera. So as I mentioned, road salt is our number one kind of source of salt pollution, again, carried off by storm, runoff into our storm drains, right, and emptying into our lakes, but also water softeners, and that's maybe a lesser known source. Salt, water softeners, they process salt through their systems, and that leaves those systems into our waterways, and these will infiltrate into our lakes or groundwater. But I'm here today just to focus on road salt, but I just didn't want to, I want to make sure that's on the radar. So let's just take a look at some of the environmental impacts, firstly to our fresh water, because in our lakes, salt degrades ecosystems. It creates toxic conditions that not only for aquatic life, but for fish populations, they will decline. It disrupts overall biodiversity, degrades it. It also it changes our water chemistry in our lakes. And this fosters a ripe environment for toxic algal blooms. So those blue-green algal blooms that close our beaches, that could make our families, our pets sick, those are one of the outcomes of this issue. And of course, lakes in urban settings are experiencing far higher and faster rates of salt concentration. So if we then look at what's going on in the land, salt does percolate into the soil, right? When it's applied on our roads, and especially you see on faster moving traffic, salt spray onto the nearby landscape will cause burns and will degrade soil quality. Even the melting, the runoff through snow melt onto just our local properties, will notice over time, the soil profile becomes depleted of water, and so that depletes nutrients from trees and plants. This salinized groundwater also impacts people, right? It contaminates our drinking wells. And so Madison and Monona's drinking water, our source is groundwater. And I just point on the slide here that of Madison's 22 water wells, 3 of them have been infiltrated by salt pollution. So the impacts to property and infrastructure are costly. For every $1 spent on salt, $10 are spent on repairing the damage. So it's significant. So what does the damage look like? Well, it weakens concrete, brick, and stone that's used in our buildings and homes, right? Salt also corrodes and weakens concrete and the metal used for roads and bridges. And I can see the slide is a little off. But it also, as we've all have experienced at some point, damages our vehicles, bicycles, and other equipment that is exposed to areas that salt has been applied. So how can you reduce salt pollution? And that's really what we kind of want to drive home today and help you, invite you to champion this issue with us. So if you maintain your own sidewalks and or parking lots, it's kind of a little quick catchphrase to remember, which is shovel, scatter, switch. And that's on the material that Teresa handed out to you as well. Briefly, the shoveling, clearing those walkways and other areas before snow turns to ice, that's super important. If you use salt, you can scatter it in a way to minimize damage. The scatter is kind of important. It only takes 1 cup, 1 coffee mug of salt to treat a 20-foot driveway or 10 sidewalk squares. That's not a whole lot. So, they say about 3 centimeters between grains of salt is more than adequate. Not that you're going to go out with a ruler, but just for the visual, to understand it doesn't need to be a thick blanket of salt. So let's look at that a little more closely. By shoveling those areas during a storm, if you can, early and frequently, this really helps prevent compaction of snow, right? And that compaction is what often compels us to start putting the salt down. But if we eliminate the conditions for compaction, we will use less salt. Another pro tip is that when you use salt on top of snow, this creates slush. And then when the temps drop again, that slush becomes ice, and you've got now a cycle of wanting to put more salt on that ice. So if you do choose to use salt, I mentioned there's a right way to scatter, and this image kind of conveys that for you. A hand spreader can help, and again, that 12-ounce cup, just think about that when you go out to apply salt on your properties. If you hire others to apply salt, consider seeking certified applicators, people who are trained to know how to apply salting properly. Many of them who are trained would be certified. And so I have actually you'll see if this is provided in notes to you all, there's hyperlinks in this presentation that you can see these sources that I would recommend. And the primary and most visible source or organization is SaltWise. They're a coalition of organizations. They are working together to reduce salt pollution in our lakes, in our water bodies, and our drinking water. And so local businesses and contractors can get certified through the Winter Salt Certification Program. And then there's just some additional actions that you can do to reduce salt, over-salting. And that is, back to the water softeners, you can tune them or upgrade them. You can also apply for salt reduction rebates through the Madison Metropolitan Sewerage District. So another opportunity to look into. So, slides are a little off here, but the City of Monona's efforts to be SaltWise include, again, when city knows that there's storms coming, they apply salt brine solution. It's pre-sprayed on areas on our roadways that are hilly, that have curves on bridges. And again, it's kind of coordinated to use it sparingly so that it is effective during snow events. Snow is also plowed before any salt application. Salt is also only applied if the temperature and weather conditions are appropriate. And when they aren't, then you'll see other traction or de-icing agents. And also, again, the city's equipment is calibrated to ensure that correct salt application rate is used. And that's really a crux of it. And you'll want to see that with folks that you hire on your properties who will apply. Their equipment has been appropriately calibrated. And Monona's City Public Works crew is SaltWise certified. So hyperlinked in here as well. And then when I started the presentation, I showed you our Don't Be Salty logo. We hope that you've seen some stickers. It's an initiative that's 2 years old now, and we did some outreach and promotion. You might hear us on WVMO. But the Don't Be Salty initiative has sought to increase Monona residents' awareness of impacts caused by oversalting. Just want to get the message out. We want to educate our residents and businesses about how to, use winter salt responsibly. And then initially, we really wanted to understand what our city was doing in terms of practicing responsible winter salting. And so we have documented this, and we have established kind of a baseline. And when we went out to initially, each winter, we canvass our businesses. Our first year, we canvassed up and down Monona Drive. We met with 39 different businesses. And we had some really great interactions to help kind of spread the word. So you may see us out and about again soon, but thank you for having us here today to share this information with you. Are there any questions? Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. Christine, I'll move on. Okay.
Okay, Kathy, you're up. And I think, is it on here?
It's on the desktop.
Okay, I'll let you go.
Thanks.
Before Kathy starts, I should have jumped in after Kristen's slideshow was completed. Kristen is so humble. She says, we did this, we did that. I think what she means is she and one other volunteer from the Sustainability Committee have really been focusing on this citizen outreach. The Sustainability Committee, unlike many other committees, is really a working group, and our members sort of divide up and choose which initiatives they wish to work on. And Kristen has been digging into the salt, and her present is extraordinary, the information you shared with us. And even though the committee's size is regulated by Monona ordinance, there are always opportunities for everybody to join through these sorts of work groups. You don't have to be a member of the committee. You could join a particular work group, like if you care to educate people about salt in the winter, or phosphorus in the lake through autumn leaves, or chemicals in the lake in the springtime through runoff on our yards and such. There's always something to do year-round, and in particular, if you have a background in energy or clean energy alternatives, the city has a very ambitious goal, and we are always looking for input on how we can achieve our clean energy goals. So I will just wrap it up that way. Thank you so much, Kristen.
Terrific. So I'm Kathy Kuntz. I'm with the Dane County Office of Energy and Climate Change, and I'm really here today to talk about all of the funding that's available for clean energy projects at businesses and nonprofits. And I'll just sort of start by giving you, so our office exists inside the county exec's office since 2017, and we lead internal county operation greening. In 2023, we became the first county, you all became the first county in the state where all of the electricity for our county operations comes from renewable sources. So pretty ambitious in terms of our own operations, but a lot of what our office focuses on is county-wide climate action. How do we help everyone in the county do things? And the thing to know about that is, as a county in Wisconsin, under our Constitution, we do not have a lot of authority. I kind of can't boss people to do what I want them to do. This has to happen in a different way. So we like to quickly go, okay, there are a couple of strategies we use. The first is leading by example. And maybe a good example of that is we did a solar project with Alliant Energy to get to 100% renewable. And McFarland copied that project to help achieve their goals, because that's kind of our aim, is to do things in a way that other people can emulate. So we lead by example, but we also know other people are doing cool things. We have a Climate Champions program where we've now celebrated 180 climate champions locally. Somehow I have to get one of my interns to add 30 more logos to that slide. Everyone's sort of avoiding me right now because it's... And so we're recognizing local governments, Monona is there, businesses, nonprofits, who in one way or another are leading. We have lots of really cool stuff happening in our communities, and the more we celebrate it, the more it multiplies. So a big piece of what we do is that recognition. Monona Grove is also on there somewhere. The school district's here. We also weave equity into everything we do, because whether we're talking globally, My chart over there is a global chart, or locally, the reality is the folks who are suffering the most from climate impacts are often the folks who made the least emissions. This is an inequitable issue at its core. The folks who make the most emissions have the least impacts. You know, they're which is what that graph shows you in very kind of at a global level. So we're always thinking about how do we do this work in a way that increases equity. And fundamentally, mostly what we do is how do we make it easier for other folks to make the right decisions? How do we make it easier to choose clean energy? And when the federal government passed the Inflation Reduction Act, we really leaned into that because there's a lot of money to make it easier. So we created a whole section of our website where essentially we spent the time reading 200- and 300-page IRS guidance documents and then creating like 4 bullet points. Okay, to pursue this, these are the 4 most important things you need to know. And here's the link to the guidance in case you can't sleep some night and want to read the whole thing. But, you know, really trying to make this really easy for folks. And we're doing that because the Inflation Reduction Act and the other pieces of legislation are a huge deal. So my history is I was with Focus on Energy back there in 2009 when the Recovery Act happened, and we were talking about $30 billion a year for clean energy, and we thought, this is never going to happen again. This is so amazing. Now we're talking about $150 billion a year. And because we're the day after the election, a thing I want to make a really big point of here, and I'll come back to, is most of the money that's available is tax credits. You do a project, you get the credit. And we'll talk about the specifics of that. The thing about tax credits are, there is like almost no time in the history of this country when Congress has ever taken a tax credit away from the American people once they had it. They might let a tax credit expire. These are set to expire in 2032, but it's not their inclination to take them away because, you know, it's like taking candy away from kids. It's like, it would just be better to not have given them candy than to take it away. So let's talk about what's in here. The first piece is energy efficiency. Of the pieces I'm going to talk about, this piece is the least robust, unfortunately. So there has always been an energy efficiency tax deduction. If you take a building, a bigger building, and you make it more energy efficient, you can get, based on the square footage, a tax deduction. This deduction now has a multiplier. If you use prevailing wage, you can get 5 times this. So the deduction goes from 50 cents a square foot for a 25% savings to $2.50 a square foot. Decent money as a tax deduction. It's going to work best for older buildings. The thing to know about this, though, is you can layer it with Focus on Energy, with property assessed clean energy financing to make it even more cost effective. The best opportunities for this are big older buildings because your baseline that you're comparing to is your existing building's energy use. So if somebody's got, looking at the planner, an older building that they're retrofitting, like making sure they know about that tax deduction because it could add up really quickly if you're talking about 100,000 square feet or something. I'm going to say this a lot, that things layer with Focus on Energy and PACE. So Focus on Energy, our statewide energy efficiency and renewable energy program. Most people think about them as a source of rebates, but the other thing to think about is they're also a source of technical assistance. They've got a bunch of energy engineers who can help you figure something out, and you want to be asking them for that. And then PACE financing is property assessed clean energy financing. Essentially, it's a way to finance efficiency or water conservation or renewable energy measures against the property assessment. And typically those loans are set up so they're cash flow positive. So it's a longer loan, but it means you might pay $1,000 back on the loan every year and save $1,200 on your energy every year. So you're actually cash flow positive in this, which can be a really big deal for some organizations. That works for private businesses and nonprofits. Okay, the real part of the Inflation Reduction Act, though, is the renewable energy credits. So these apply to solar, they apply to geothermal, ground source heat pumps, wind, battery storage. And the credits are 30% of the project cost. No cap, no caveats. Unless your project is over 1 megawatt, and then there are some requirements, nobody you know is doing a project over 1 megawatt unless they're a utility. I mean, that's a really big project. Cool things that happen to this in the Inflation Reduction Act is businesses and farms who maybe can't take that tax credit, maybe they don't have enough, a tax credit comes off the tax you owe. So maybe you're a business that doesn't end up owing taxes. The IRS, Congress and the IRS created a way you can transfer that, essentially a way you can sell it. And what we're seeing in that market is people are getting like 95 cents on the dollar to trade those credits. It's usually banks that are buying, you know, the banks and other financial entities who have higher tax liability are buying those. The other thing that's a really big deal that happened here is Congress invented elective pay, which means nonprofits, tax-exempt entities, including local governments, can now claim these credits too. That's a huge deal. And I'll give you an example of that. And homes and apartments can do this, and again, you can layer it with focus and PACE financing. The aim here was to make clean energy cheaper than the dirty alternatives, and this is fast on its way to doing that. I want to give you a couple of like visuals to think about this. So this is a graph of residential solar and commercial solar costs over time for about a decade, and I want you to just like contemplate how those went down. So in 2010, like solar installation, so maybe the piece to pay the most attention to is this gray bar. That's the core cost of the solar panels. I can tell you, we installed solar at our house in 2008, and we paid about $3 a watt, and my friends in the industry told me I was getting a great deal, and today it's like 50 cents a watt. And I was getting a great deal at the time, but you know, it all helps move. So I show this because sometimes when we talk to folks, they say, oh, you know, we looked at solar, Kathy, it didn't pencil out. And I'm like, tell me about that. Well, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago, we had someone give us an estimate. And I'm like, did you look at a big screen TV 10 or 15 years ago? Remember when they were like $10,000? And now they're like 400? That's what happens to technology. It gets cheaper over time. So if you haven't looked at it lately, you should look at it again. Geothermal is also like a really big deal here. So, and it's a big deal because the 30% credit applies to those bores you put in the ground to make the geothermal system work, but it also applies to all of the HVAC system inside the building that is part of the geothermal. So when you take 30% off that full cost, we're seeing cases where it's super competitive with just staying with your old system. The best local example I have of this is Holy Wisdom Monastery was just replacing their 40, 50-year-old gas boilers, and they went with geothermal, and they're saying that with the tax credit, the cost up front was essentially the same. But now they also get cooling, and they get much more efficient heating than they would have gotten with those gas boilers. So lots of cost savings down the line and not more cost up front. That picture over there is the new Centro Hispano facility and their geothermal system. And I just think it's useful to have an illustration of how deep we're talking those wells. Wells go to different depths depending on the kind of ground you're on, sort of thing. But so in their location, their wells are pretty deep. Give you one example of how the math on this comes together. So the Village of McFarland has a new public safety center. They started building it as a net zero energy building before the Inflation Reduction Act, but they finished after and it qualified. They spent in total about $3.5 million on solar and geothermal, and they're going to get about $1 million back from the feds as the elective pay credit. And literally that comes as a one-time $1 million payment to the village of unrestricted federal funds that they can then opt to use to buy down that debt, to put into another project, or whatever their village board determines. That, like, they're sort of done once they get that money in hand, which is pretty significant, because getting $1 million of federal money usually takes a lot more effort than this. One other example for you, so this is, I steal this slide from Ben Austin at Findorf. This is the Centro Hispano example. So their system cost was just under $2 million. They qualified for, there's a statewide program, Solar for Good, that gives grants to nonprofits for solar. They got a $10,000 grant there. The city of Madison has a program for nonprofits, another $10,000. They got about $21,000 from Focus on Energy for the efficiency and the solar. And then they got like more than $500,000 under the Inflation Reduction Act. For their solar, they got a bonus because they serve low-income populations, and they got the geothermal payment there. So just to, because I think it's important to see that the money available here is much bigger than the money we've seen available otherwise. This is a multiplier effect. Centro had a bonus. There are bonus credits. You can get another 10% if it's a project that's serving low-income households. That's competitive. You can get 10% if you're in an energy community. You can get 10% if you do domestic content. You know, so the ways to make that a 40 or 50% credit on certain projects. There is also the 30% credit also applies to electric vehicles. So as a nonprofit or a for-profit, you can get that 30% credit on EVs, which includes like light duty vehicles, but it also includes things like forklifts and riding lawnmowers that are electric. So the credit is more expansive on the commercial side than it is for homeowners. If you have been looking at the credit as an individual and you know that there's like a list of certain vehicles that it applies to, that's not true for your business. Your business has a much bigger list of things they can get the credit on. And again, those are in place through 2032. And then before I stop, I just always, because you're all individuals too, to say, so in addition to all of that stuff on the commercial and nonprofit side, there are also credits for you as individuals. Again, 30% for solar and battery storage, no limits on that. Up to 30% for a variety of energy efficiency things. There are annual limits on each of those things. It's a little bit more complicated. Again, lots of information and links on our website. And as an individual, you can get a tax credit both on new and used EVs. The credit on used EVs is $4,000. For both of them, you have to buy from a dealership. And for both of them now, those credits are instant at dealerships. So you can get it off the purchase price when you buy the vehicle. It means you save the sales tax too. It's kind of a bigger win benefit. Those programs, the tax credits work really good for folks who have income to put down for these projects. The one new program that we're seeing come out of the Inflation Reduction Act is a home energy rebate program. Wisconsin is getting $150 million for this. There's an energy efficiency component called Homes, an electrification component called Here. And the bottom line here is that there are really good incentives for households up to 80% area median income. So we're Dane County, we have a high income level. That's good. That gives us a good chunk of people. And then like incentives are about 50% of project costs for folks up to 150% of area median income. These are just starting to roll out. We're starting to talk about these. This could be, to Teresa's point, a really good opportunity for a sustainability committee or other city communications. You think about older neighborhoods in Monona, could be a really good opportunity for households to do some upgrades. One of the things I would point out here is under the electrification piece, households can get funding to do electrical panel and wiring upgrades. And that's never been included in an energy program before, but we know it's an issue for some older homes. And so that could be a thing to really highlight there. And then I just want to close by saying the whole point of our office and all the information we have here is to help with this stuff. So it's a picture of my colleague Valora, who is also working with nonprofits and small businesses. But really, you reach out to us, we help you figure out an answer, we connect you to who you need to be connected to. This is our quest. We want to make this easy for all of you to do this. And I will send a PDF of this so you'll have all the links to all the stuff, because there's lots of links there. And I think that's it for me. Happy to take a question if you've got one, but
Kathy, I have a quick question. So on the cars, you said that they had to be bought from dealerships. Will there be something for people who want to convert cars in the future, or?
oh, that's like a, yeah, they're, I have not seen an incentive for that. You know, I think that becomes the, so maybe a thing I should say, because we're a day after the election, like those new energy efficiency programs that are going through Focus, one thing the Biden administration was really focused on was getting those dollars committed to states as soon as possible. So all the dollars are committed to Wisconsin. So in theory, that program is going to run for 2 to 3 years until it runs out of money, but those dollars are there. I think it's harder to see what new things are going to happen now unless there's sort of some reconciling of perspectives on EVs and things. I don't know. Trump's hanging out with Musk. He seems to like EVs, so maybe there's some like peace that gets made there in some way. But there's nothing baked into the stuff that's moving forward at this point. And I think we just have to wait and see what new opportunities emerge. Other questions for me?
I just want to say thank you for sort of leading your presentation with a bit of reassurance that not in the history of the, have we taken back the tax credit. So there's so many questions.
Yeah, so the other thing I should say about that is about a month ago, something like 20 members of the GOP in the House of Representatives sent an open letter to the Speaker and Trump saying, stop saying you're going to eliminate the clean energy tax credits, because you're not. You don't have our votes. And that was pretty significant for them to do an open letter about that. And that makes us think that, okay, there's just not enough votes to repeal a tax credit requires congressional action. Now, I do think it's plausible that some of the tax credits could get more complicated to apply for, which is why, again, there is a really good network nationally. There's a group called Lawyers for Good Government that has done a ton of work that we cite on our website. And, I feel like there's a lot of us figuring out. Nobody should feel like they're trying to navigate those forms on their own. There are annotated examples and things. And, again, we want you to get, the way to think about tax credits is, so, whoever does a project gets a credit. But there's no rule that every state gets their share of tax credits. Entirely plausible that you have a federal tax credit and a ton of projects happen in California and a ton of projects happen on the East Coast. And from a federal perspective, that was good use of a tax credit. If we don't do projects, we don't get our share of those tax credits. So I'm determined that we have a lot more projects like McFarland so that it's clear that credits came back to our communities.
Kathy, as an aside, Tesla is developing a water power engine.
I think, we're in this amazing moment with transportation that after kind of spending 100 years going, there's only one way to do this, we're like really opening that box and thinking about lots of things. And yeah, transportation is going to get a lot cleaner, which helps us with lake quality and all kinds of things. Okay.
Thank you so much, Becky.
Okay, and last but not least, I think most of you around here know Kate as the CEO of the Middleton Chamber, but she's coming to talk to us today about Mission Workforce Alliance, had to get the name right, where they're working with veterans and trying to put them together, use their credits, their experiences, and turn that into credits to get jobs. So go ahead.
Oh, here.
Do you need?
Do you have me or do you want my?
Yes.
Okay. While we're getting the A's, always the AV. And I can grab my laptop if you need me to.
No, I have it. That's
Okay.
right. I remember.
Okay, perfect. While we're doing that, again, I'm Kate Miller. I'm the president and CEO of the Middleton Chamber of Commerce and the Middleton Chamber Foundation. Can we all just take a moment for a deep cleansing breath? No matter which way you lean, we've gotten through the election. Everybody deep inhale. I'm not getting to it. All right, we did it. So, real quick, can we go around the room? I've introduced myself. Just say your name and who you're with. Starting with
Hi. James Ty, Queen Lakes Alliance.
Good to see you.
Doug Plowman, City of Monona.
Kathy, Dane County.
Over here.
Tom Harr, Wisconsin Vets Chamber. Terry Morosky,
Good to
Soda
see you.
Bank.
Greg Benz, Monona Grove School District.
Teresa Rademacher, Monona City Council. Mary Diola Comjob.
Terry Erickson, One Community Bank, also a board member for MESBA.
Gene Sarmiento, Sarbank Solutions.
Adrian's Kaiser, Monona Grove School District. Laura Hosty, MESBA Tourism Coordinator.
Matt Duggar with Hoffman Manufacturing.
Mary O'Connor, Mayor from Noma.
All right. We all
This
set
came
up?
over as
Well, thank you everybody for being here.
Oh, here we go. Okay, there you go.
Okay, what do I have for time?
Oh, you're good. You have no more.
Oh, don't need that. Okay. So again, my name is Kate Miller. I'm going to talk to you today about Mission Workforce Alliance, which is a program that was developed underneath the Middleton Chamber Foundation. And we have partnered with chambers and economic development organizations throughout the state. And we'll get a little bit more into what the program is. But, you know, one thing that business leaders and as leaders in the business membership industry, whether it's an association or a chamber of commerce, our focus is on connecting. Connecting our business community to each other, marketing and promoting our businesses to connect you to the wider community, to connect you to resources, and to connect you to what you need to ensure that your businesses are growing, to ensure that the vitality of our communities is great. So, part of what we do as leaders in our industries is talk to our business community and say, you know, what's going on, tell me about your hurdles. And I spent a couple of years going out and speaking to our businesses and just saying, listening and asking one question: what keeps you up at night? And hands down, the number one thing was workforce. And so when I hear something like that over and over and over, as a chamber leader, I know that it's my responsibility to try to help our business community overcome that hurdle. And so Mission Workforce Alliance is something that was built through partnerships with other organizations. And it's a program designed to bridge the gap between service members leaving active duty, transitioning service members, and the critical workforce shortage needs of businesses across the state. So we're going to talk a little bit about population and workforce trends, statistics around transitioning service members. You'll see it as TSMs. Talk a little bit about the Mission Workforce Alliance program and how it works, the economic impact of the program, candidates that we currently have in our portal and the skill set that they have, and then a little bit about the program investment. So statistics, we're going to look at past, present, and future workforce challenges, group of talent that we have overlooked and what the opportunities are. So we're going to start out with some of the bad news, but I promise you it will get better. So this just reflects the population ages 16 through 64, where we have been and where we're heading. So you can see, back in the baby boomers, we had pretty big population. It's kind of dropped off a little bit in the 60s. And then we had some pretty consistent growth up until the 2010s, and then it started really dropping off. And this data comes from, talking about aging population, is from the population projected from Applied Population Lab. And what they did is they used the 2010 Census Bureau data to determine the population, and it went down through 2090. This reflects the rate at which young adults are leaving their home states. So the red is a slower rate than the blue. So you can kind of see where we're at. So we're not blue, so we're doing better than some of our neighboring states, but we do have a significant younger population that is leaving the state. This is Wisconsin's 2040 projection population. So this, again, is the percent growth by age group. And this is according to the 2010 Census Bureau. So you can see that we will have most of our population by 2040, if things continue as is, will be older than 65. So we have an aging population. And then Wisconsin labor market trends. This is from the Wisconsin Department of Workforce Development, and this just shows the red line is unemployment, the green line are job openings. And so you can see from this graph that the workforce shortage is hitting hard now, but really in about 2017 is when you can see those two lines cross, where we had more jobs than we had workforce. And then right here in Wisconsin, in 2022, the Wisconsin Department of Workforce Development reported that Wisconsin faces a shortage of about 140,000 workers because there simply are not enough people to fill those positions. The reasoning is what I just presented on. Shifts in cultural norms, pursuit of higher education and careers have many having fewer children, which is contributing to declining birth rates. And outmigration is happening, particularly among younger individuals seeking job opportunities outside of the state. So this is just in here to remind me to take a breath. Pause for a moment. I doubt that anybody in this room is shocked by these numbers, but any questions, concerns, comments thus far?
Shocked by the extreme nature of that. I mean, not that it's trend, but those are pretty staggering projections.
Yeah. Yep.
And we were just talking, like the decrease of the birth rate, so people are just having less kids, and then they're waiting. I know a lot of people are in their 30s and 40s before they even have children now.
And at least among my friends, kids are living with their parents for longer because they watched us struggle paying back student loan debt. So they're still, they're living at home with mom and dad. They're not getting married, having kids. That type of thing. So, yes.
Yeah, just recently I saw that for the first time ever, the United States population has gone under replacement. So we were at 2.0, we just went to 2.9. But if you take 2.9 by the population of the United States, we're, besides all everybody just getting older, so we're just not having people. And then some other time, when you look at, have you ever seen really big graphs of how different rural economies work, especially like in Russia and China and some other places, when your population decreases, it's really, really bad. I mean, when you look at over the last 200 years and big world populations, when different countries start to slide into not reproducing at the rate that they're supposed to.
I think one thing I got from it is that hiring people, we're always saying other people don't want to work. What we're saying, what you're saying here is there's not people that are working, there's not enough people.
There's
Which
not.
is something I've never looked at it that way, it's always like, oh, we can't just hire enough people.
Yeah.
But that's a really good point.
It's not just because we're lazy.
Yeah.
It's that we just don't have the population that we need for the jobs that we're creating.
It's very interesting.
Great comments. Anything else?
I got one thing.
Yeah.
So, first of all, I applaud Kate, and the Veterans Chamber of Commerce for pushing the narrative of bringing veterans into this state, because we understand. You make your last career here in Wisconsin, because you're gonna be a taxpayer, you're gonna use the banks, you're gonna, move commerce in a positive direction, so I applaud it. The one thing you gotta figure out, if there's veterans in your workspace right now, in order for another company to get them, they pretty much have to steal you from your current position to go to this other institution. Outside of that, Kate's gonna talk about in a minute, you bring them off of active duty and bring them into Wisconsin, so I applaud it.
Thank you.
Yep.
I appreciate that. Okay, so to your point, so every year, over 200,000 heroes transition out of the military into active duty. So that is a huge pool of highly skilled talent that we should be utilizing. The SHRM Foundation talked to HR professionals, and they came up with the top 5 reason to hire a transitioning service member. They're trained leaders that make important decisions under pressure and can handle complex situations. They're accustomed to structured routines, high expectations, dedicated and committed to consistent, reliable, high-quality performance. They have incredible attention to detail from military operations to ensure safety and success. Strong emphasis on values like integrity, ethics, and accountability. They contribute to a positive, ethical workforce in an organization. And corporate support of transitioning service member demonstrates commitment to supporting those who have served our country. And this can improve an organization's reputation, enhance its image in the eyes of customers, investors, and the general public. Again, SHRM Foundation, when they spoke to HR professionals and said, hey, for those businesses who have a veteran placed in their organization, where do they thrive? And 97 and 98% of HR professionals say that they thrive in entry-level and managerial positions, white-collar and blue-collar positions, team-based and individual settings. So again, they have a wide range of skills and abilities and can fit in a number of roles. So just to recap what we've learned, people are having less babies, young adults are leaving the area, we're getting old. I mean, the proof is right up here. I'm doing this every 2 seconds. We're facing right here in the great state of Wisconsin a workforce shortage of 140,000 workers. But the good news is we have 200,000 transitioning service members annually with a wide range of skills and education that thrive in multiple roles. So Mission Workforce Alliance, again, this was something that was created through our foundation after having those conversations, not just with our business community, but with other chamber leaders and economic development leaders. And we're coming together, we're all friends, We're all coming together and saying, if Monona's doing well, Middleton's doing well, if Madison's doing well, Stoughton's doing well, we need to look at this much more broadly. We want the state to do well. So Mission Workforce Alliance was born through partnerships with different organizations that work with transitioning service members, veterans, and their families in different ways. It could be that they're working with them to help them develop their resumes so that it translates to civilian careers. It could be that they're helping them move logistics of moving from somewhere in another part of the world, back into the States. So we've developed those partnerships with those organizations. They go around, talk to these military transitioning service members, veterans and their families, if they are willing to relocate to Wisconsin, or just willing to relocate anywhere. They are in the service, they're used to moving around, they're open to living in different places. Then we get their resumes. Those resumes then are put into a portal where our business partners can access these highly skilled candidates. So you have access to this workforce, and then what we do is we continue to follow up with the businesses and the candidates. Once you find a candidate that you like, we leave it up to you. Your team, your HR department, whoever, you guys work with that candidate, go through the hiring process, that type of thing. We will continue to follow up and ask for reporting back to get demographic information that we can report. So, zip code that they were hired in, number of adults, number of children, household income, those types of things, so that we can really work with our partners on reporting back the significance of the economic impact that we're having. Tom, I think you alluded to the economic impact of this. So I am not going to bore you with all of the mathing and the details, but if you have questions, I am happy to answer these afterwards. But based on some different factors, conservatively, one person moving into the state has an economic impact of around $50,000 a year. So that's just one person coming in to your community or coming into the state. They're spending money on groceries, they're spending money on rent, they're paying taxes, they're buying homes, their kids are in athletics, all of that good stuff. So there are a couple, and again, I was really trying to keep this to 10 minutes, so I didn't go into a lot of detail, and I'm happy to answer questions as a group or individually. But our partnership with Monona Eastside Business Association, we also have partnerships with New North Economic Development Organization, which is a 16-county region in the Green Bay area, the Eau Claire Chamber of Commerce. So we've really spread this statewide to open this up to our business community. So you can either sign up through your website, possibly, or you can go directly to missionworkforcealliance.org. There's a code that is associated with MESBA that will get you in so that we can kind of track where businesses are coming from. You'll receive access to a portal of candidates. You can search. It's smart search, so as you start typing in project manager or manufacturing or whatever, it will filter to those candidates. You contact the candidates themselves, do the interviewing, and then we know it's very important to recruit military talent, but it's just as important, if not more important, to retain them. So we all know the cost of turnover in a business, so we want to make sure that once we recruit that talent, we're able to retain that talent. So if you're a part of the program, you receive training every other month on recruitment and retention of military talent. So some of those trainings include how to read a military resume and translate that to the civilian world, how to create a work environment that will retain your military talent, how to write a job posting to attract military talent. So all those different types of things to make sure that you're successful by being part of the program. And then again, just ongoing communication. There's access in the portal to all the reporting on this is who was hired, this was where, these are the zip codes, who was associated with Monona, Fitchburg, Stoughton, whatever. The investment breakdown, so it's $1,200 a year to be part of the program. That helps us keep things going, keep the lights on. And this is just comparing it to LinkedIn and Indeed recruiting. So based on the market research that we did, this is definitely something that most businesses find affordable and valuable. Right now we currently have 66 candidates in the portal. with a wide range of skills, anywhere from aerospace to manufacturing, project management, a lot of software engineers, so finance, wide range of talent out there ready to be hired. I can say that the way that the program works, for the most part, I would say 80% to 90% of the candidates that are currently in the portal are transitioning service members. So we start getting their resumes when they're 18 months out of transitioning out of the military into civilian world. We have anywhere from 18 months to ready to work now. The program we kicked off, we did a slow rollout and some beta testing in January with a few business partners to work out the kinks of the software portal. Did a full launch in May, and we've gone from this being an initiative where I was like, I don't know, I need to help the Middleton Chamber businesses, to we've put the blood, sweat, tears, and resources into this. Why not share it with our Chamber and Economic Development partners? So it's gone from a very focused, let's help the Middleton Chamber businesses, to statewide in less than a year. So it's something that we're very proud of, and hope that even if your business can't use it, you can start getting the word out, because we really think that this can make a significant impact to the state. Any questions, concerns? Yeah.
So are you kind of the only person doing this, or is this like something that happens nationwide? Like, how do you find the candidates that are willing, and then like, is there like a relocation cost that you guys cover, or is it just sort of like?
Yeah, we're connectors. We're connecting, but that's a really good question. So the partners that we work with, we have several different partners. And one of them, so the way that this all came together was, how things work. You meet somebody at a conference and you hear them speak, and then like a year later you see them. And so there's an organization called Mission Wisconsin and Semper Forward. And what that organization does is they actually travel around the world, and they're setting up at job fairs for transitioning service members. He does something similar, only for large organizations, and it's a huge cost. And so 3 years ago now, probably, I'm like, man, I would love to be able to offer something similar, but it's too much, it costs too much for small businesses. Let's stay in touch, let's keep in communication. Fast forward, he starts introducing me to other people that are helping veterans and transitioning service members, their spouses, their adult children. And we all just started talking, and at some point it was like, we just need to pull the trigger on this. And other chambers know Steve, who runs Semper Forward and Mission Wisconsin. And so once we had this up and going, they started calling and being like, hey, Steve said that you figured this out and that I should call you. How do we figure this out? How do we do it? And I was like, oh, you can just have it. We've done it. We'll give you all this stuff. We'll give you the presentations. We'll give you the social media. We'll give you the graphic design. We'll give you all the information. Just share it with your community. So if somebody needs help with that relocation cost, we have partners that we refer them to. And we don't work directly with the candidates. We work with those partners. So by the time the candidates get to us, they have that other support that they need in order to make that transition.
Can I say one thing? If you're coming off the active duty too, you get one movement called permanent change of station. So the federal government moves your stuff for free. You just have to have an address to move it to. So that helps with relocation too.
And we do the training, like I said, every other month, but in that portal, we record them, and you can go back and watch them and get caught up, or there's something in particular that you want to refresh your mind on, that would be available to you.
So I love this, and the angle I'm thinking about is the building trades, which is a place where we've got a ton of need, people who, with certain assignments, might really like HVAC work, so I'm wondering if you've had, or maybe how I help you have those conversations with, we think we're short something like 15,000 people in the building trades in Dane County. We have these big goals around housing. Projects don't build themselves.
Yep.
There actually needs to be people on the ground, and so I'm wondering if you've got some of those folks in your network, or if, yeah.
I will take any help I can.
Okay.
So yes, I'm starting to reach out. So again, this full disclosure, it's a newer program, and it's me and a part-time person out there just trying to get the awareness out there. So any connections that you can make, I have a couple of connections just through our current membership, but
Right.
I'd love to talk.
Yeah, let me
about
think
that.
about who the right people are there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, a lot of these construction companies have their own apprenticeship program. So even if they
Right. We're increasingly, I was just in an event with a HVAC company from Green Bay who said, we don't even think we can hire people who know anything about HVAC anymore. And it was very much to your point. We want people who are honest, who, can go into
leaders,
somebody's
high
home
integrity,
and,
work
yeah,
ethic.
it's all soft skills. They're like, we're doing all the training because it's the only way we can kind of fill the seats at this point. So I think it's an opportune moment for something like this. It's really finding people who are going, oh yeah, that seems like switching from nuclear submarines to heat pumps.
Yes, exactly. Sure. I mean, it seems like it'd
It's
be a
still
little easier.
dials and the stakes are a little lower.
Knobs and cobobulators.
Yeah, exactly.
I saw a hand at some. Yeah.
Yeah, the partnerships here you're looking, is it specifically for employers, or do you also, I mean, I'm not a recruiter, but do you also partner recruiters can access this portal as well, or just strictly?
Right now, we're not partnering with recruiters because they will gobble up the entire database, and I mean, recruiters make some decent money, and we're just charging the bare minimum. So we're leaving recruiters to let them do their own recruiting, and this program is for others. Yeah. What else?
God bless you, Kate.
Thanks, Terry. So you can reach out to me directly, Christine, or you guys can probably answer questions or redirect. This QR code will get you to our link tree, and you can sign up for the newsletter, start getting information, follow us on all the socials, all that good stuff. Again, I'm happy to have one-on-one conversations, stick around afterwards, whatever you guys need. But I appreciate your time and attention, and for getting out of bed the day after an election. I really appreciate you being here.
Well, that is all we have. We might be even a little early. Yeah. So feel free to mingle. There are more bagels. Please eat them. If you have any questions or anything, our next member meeting is on the 20th. It's a Wednesday from 3 to 5. And that morning, I will be speaking with Tom's group downtown at the with free parking. So, yep, the 20th from 3 to 4, or you can catch me in the morning from 8 to 9. Tom? Yes. Yes, in the evening, yeah. Yeah. Okay, thank you, everybody.